नमस्कार भाइयों और बहनों, आप सबका स्वागत है इस जूम मीटिंग में। हम आपको बताएंगे हाउ यू टाई अ पगड़ी। Oh, sorry, I guess the wrong Zoom. We're not doing the turban tying today. We're doing Zoom with legends, and our legends today are Baird Steptoe Senior, who is an amazing member, very union oriented, and takes care of his brothers and sisters on set. And we have Gunnar Mortensen. Who doesn't know Gunnar? His incredible smile, his quirky little looks that he's got, and also his amazing ability to keep all of us on set together and bring together a really strong team. Let me just tell you a little bit about our two participants before we start, and then I will let them get into their war stories. Like I said, Baird has been a very strong advocate for the union. But let me tell you a little story about how big his heart is. When they were working in right after Hurricane Katrina, Baird happened to be taking a walk one evening and saw this lady, young girl, sleeping in a car, and had a conversation with her and found out that she wanted to be part of the film crew. And he brought her onto set, spoke with the producers. They hired her as a camera trainee, and she's now, years later, a member of the union. Works all the time as a second AC. There are so many stories like that. Baird walking around on the street, passing somebody that's got photographs, selling photographs, art on the street. Baird had a conversation with that person, saw that there was something in him, brought him into the camera department. Baird also will stand up for what is right and what is wrong. On a job many years ago with a very famous cinematographer called Tak, an actor was called to set early for some reason, and he decided to take that out on Tak in using some very vile language. And when it came time for the scene to be played, Baird refused to pull focus. He said, "I'm not doing it until this person publicly apologizes to Tak for having said some very racist things. I'm not pulling focus, and I'm happy to walk." And so the producers came out, executive producers came out, and Baird was like, "Nope, not doing it." So that's Baird. Basically he will go to the wall for you, and he will find talent in different people and nurture that talent and bring it out. And then we have Gunnar, who, as a young kid, saw a little process trailer driving by, and saw all these Panavision cameras, and he was hooked. And he started in camera department in Denver, and then moved to LA, and figured out how to get into camera. And Baird was responsible for a part of Gunnar's development. So Baird, why don't you tell us when you first remember meeting Gunnar, and how that relationship came about?
Not nose kid.
Yeah, you've got to unmute yourself, boss. Baird.
Oh, no. Sorry, I knew I was unmuted. I said, I can't remember. We've known each other for so long, but we've had the same mentor. Excuse me. Rick Waite, which I know he'll mention. I started with Rick in 1975 on Captains and the Kings. We started shooting, trying to think of the other show that he did some reshoots on. And I was with Rick for over 11 years on almost every movie and TV show that he did. And he's incredible. He was like my dad. I mean, I've had about maybe two or three directors of photography that I consider made me who I am. So if any of those things that you had mentioned before, those are the individuals that taught me basically how to be a good person and how to care for other people. Just a background for Rick Waite, he was a combat photographer in the Air Force in Korea, and that's how he got his background. And when I met him with Richard Walden, that was it. He even tried to move me up, but I didn't want to move up to an operator back in those days. But great individual.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Gunnar.
Well, I was going to say, since we're talking about Rick, who was such a delightful person to have in our lives. When I met him, it was later in his career and he was retired, and he was one of the teachers at my film school. But I knew he had so much information, and that I would just, before school started, I would take him out we'd go to this place called the Delectable Egg, and it's a little brunch spot around the corner from where we lived. He loved eating brunch and eggs Benedict. So I would just meet with him before class just to listen to these war stories and all these things. And he's always, I was trying to shoot, and like I was doing this music video, and I was, pretty young, and I was like, okay, we're shooting in the sand dunes. They said we can't have like dune buggies or anything like this. We have this huge camera package. How are we going to put it in there? And he's like, well, just get a helicopter and just have him drop it right in where you want it. I was like, we're operating on 2 different budgets here. So I just, we just had to all put like the SR2 on our backs and everything carried in the middle of the sand dunes. But, that guy was larger than life.
Interesting. What's Baird, why don't you tell us about what you consider possibly the hardest project that you've worked on, and why? And what were the challenges and how you overcame them?
Well, that's several of them, as we've all probably known. Yeah. Long Riders was very difficult with the weather. It was very hot. We went through Hurricane David, Hurricane Fredericks, when we were down in Georgia. And during that time, I picked up a soda pop and drank it. And unbeknownst to me, there was a hornet in it. And that literally took me out. And they threw me in the back of a station wagon with a police escort, because we were in Payson, Georgia, and we had to go back to Albany. So, we're driving, and they're talking about doing a tracheotomy on me, and, stopped at this little place, did an x-ray on me. We didn't know what it was. They thought it was the pull tab of the soda pop cans, back then when you pull it, right? And then somehow I dropped it in there. But that show was, that was toward the end, and then they flew me back to Los Angeles. Before that, there are scenes that you see the Carradines come flying out of the back of the place and going down the side of the road, the hill. That was the first time I started rappelling, because Rick taught me that, because we both rappelled down the side of this hill, to film. Some of the other things were the shots that we did. We were anamorphic. We had a prototype Panastar. So there's a scene where the Carradines are riding the horses coming straight at us. And we had a 2,000 millimeter anamorphic lens on, shooting high speed. And, I nailed it. And I nailed it because of an incredible assistant who was on our C camera. His name is Julian Wilson. And what he did, he took a toothpick and he put it on the barrel, because it was, it would retract. And he showed me how to do it, and I just put a mark there. Just got my marks, put the toothpick there, and that's what I did. I just watched the toothpick as they came to get my marks.
That's crazy. Wow. That's some good old school stuff, man, which we're not seeing anymore. We've all transitioned to pulling off of monitors and not being anywhere near the DP or the set, or sometimes in a different room altogether. No, that's pulling off the barrel for old school. It's awesome.
That was in '78. And then recently, it would have been Some of Our Fears in Montreal, which I'm from Southern California. I've been in some bad weather off and on, different locations. I was never in anything like that. They had the worst snowstorm ever in like 50 years. And the cameras would just freeze up. I mean, literally, we were shooting film, and it was just so cold. We had buckets underneath the cameras. to get heat and stuff. And then we had car batteries. I learned that trick from my brothers and sisters in New York. And it failed. I told them, I said, it's too cold. And they go, no, we got to shoot. And there was no way for me to adjust the flange. I'm going, there's nothing left.
Yeah.
So about a month and a half later, or when it was hot, we ended up reshooting that scene on the stage at Trudel in Montreal.
Wow. Do you remember what was it like, minus 20, minus 30?
It was, the one day, it was like minus 40.
Yeah.
It was insane.
Fahrenheit.
Yes.
That's cold.
Yeah, I'm from South Central Los Angeles. That's more than cold. Thought I was going to die.
Wow, yeah, no, that's pretty crazy. Hey, Gunnar, why don't you tell us, how your first couple of years, I believe, when you moved to LA from Denver, were pretty hard, right? They were pretty interesting. You pretty much had to work to eat, kind of deal. Is that the story?
It was. When I was in Denver, it was a very small community, and one thing that we'll get into in a second about how the difference between LA and Denver is that you'd have, when you're the loader, you had a second, and the second one didn't want to teach you what he knew because he didn't want to move you up. When I started seconding, the first didn't want to teach you how to do it because it's such a small, they wanted to keep their jobs. So I decided I'm not really going to go anywhere, and I packed up. I had a 67 Volvo 1800, and I put anything I could fit in there, or drove Route 66 in that, and I moved to LA. And I decided I've wasted so much time stalling, I'm just going to work as a focus puller and just kind of figure it out and make my mistakes in these $100 day jobs, which is like below minimum wage.
Yeah.
And I lived in someone's living room for $500 a month. And I used to go to Ralph's, which is the grocery store, and get a sandwich and eat half of it. It was $5 sandwich. So I'd eat half of it about like 11 and the half of it about 5. And that's all I ate for fucking 7 months when I moved until I could start doing that. But like you start from there, and you got to be tenacious, and you can't have a safety net. I had no safety net, because if you are driving an Uber or something like that, then you don't have to throw yourself in, because if I didn't work, I didn't eat. And then so you get to a point.
When was this? What year was this?
Oh, let's see, 2004?
Wow.
2004? Wait, no, maybe it was 2006. 2006 when we actually moved there.
And so then so doing all of that stuff, eventually, how did you transition into the union?
Well, it was a lot of shitty jobs to get me there. So you start off, you're doing $100 day jobs, and then all of a sudden you start doing a better job. So then you start working on $200 day jobs, and then the $200 day jobs turn into $400 day jobs that turn into $500 day jobs. You're doing like music videos and sometimes bigger stuff, and you're collecting your days, because we have a roster in Los Angeles on the West Coast, and you have to just put in all these days and have letters from producers, and you have to show your pay stubs and call sheets, and you have this huge binder, and you need to have 100 non-union days within 3 years to get in there. I went in there with like 170 days, and they threw out like 70 of those days because they didn't qualify for them. I was like, I worked really hard on that. They should count, but no.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? So, I'm so happy that once I got in, because I didn't really want to lean on all my mentors and everyone that I was at learning from Panavision until I really got my chops up, because we'd be prepping together, but, that was such a feather in my cap. And I was like, okay, now I'm ready to work on something real.
Yeah.
And, being in the union doesn't guarantee you being successful, but I equate it to being like getting your hunting pass. It allows you to get the jobs, the big jobs. Because if you don't go union, you're never going to get on anything that's worth doing.
Yeah.
Life's better here.
Yeah. What is some of the stuff that you and relate closely to with Baird?
Wow, we've been together so much. So we're some of the first. Baird, of course, was a little before me, but using the C motion putting that in our bag of tricks, and we've worked for years with them. And we're also very active on the union. We're part of this tech rate arbitration against the producers. It was in 2 rounds. The first round, it was George Billinger and Baird giving a presentation because the producers were saying that using a remote focus was not specialized and didn't involve getting the pay increase that being a camera technician does, being a specialized operator of that equipment. Well, so they went back, and then they came back a few months later and was like, okay, we need to have more ideas. I don't understand that. Hold on real quick. My wife keeps opening the door, and it's going in the room. Okay. All right. So I digress. So I had to go back, and I had to give a whole presentation, and that we had all these different remote focus units with this retired judge. And then I had all these anti-labor attorneys for ABC across from me, and they're asking me all these questions. And then I gave them an iPad that had a spectral analyzer on it and showed them the whole 2.4 gigahertz bandwidth that we have to play in, and we have to make sure that nothing's competing, or else you're going to get an iris jump, and all sorts of kits and whatnot. So, there's a 2-pronged attack, but at the end of the day, I think it's close to $1 million, $750,000 of back pay for the assistants. Wow. That the management was trying to screw over. So.
Wow, that's pretty. Yeah. Union strong, brother. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Baird, anything you want to add to in terms of union activism, or something that stands out to you?
Well, there's a lot of things that stand out, but especially the tech rate, because it was one of those things where they said, okay, set this up, and we had a demonstration. Before that, Tom Short and Mike Miller came into the office, and we kind of did a pre-demonstration with them for us to be set up. And I basically, who's on this thing? All right, make sure no producers are here. I cheated. I asked our attorney, David Adelstein, and Bruce Story, I said, can I hand this to the judge? Can I put it in his hand? And he goes, no, that wouldn't be a good thing to do. That wouldn't be a good thing to do. So Johnny Shire was the second that was with us, and we did a regular dolly move going across with, on the knob. And then I had Johnny come and block me, right? And we had all these monitors set up, the DIT, and then we had some 24-inch monitors. I mean, it was a total act, right? So I talked to George, because the next thing we were doing was a Steadicam shot. So I said, okay, if I get this in his hand, right, just start out slow and push right into him, right? So we had a SAG actor. There were 2 of them there, and they said, okay. So when I came out and I was doing a shot, so he came to stand next to me in between all the tables. And at that time we had, what was the Panavision monitor at that time, where you could put peaking on it? Well, it wasn't even peaking. I want to say it was just a zebra or something like that. So he said, oh, that's really neat, right? So I said, oh yeah, hey, you want to try it? And I said, you just keep that thing right there. And as soon as he did that, he went like this, and George just pushed in as fast as he could. And he goes, whoa. I mean, it was totally out of focus. Hands it back to me. Of course, I nailed it because I knew where the mark was. And he was kind of like, oh, man, But I think that was part of it too, because then he saw that there was some type of knowledge and difficulty in doing that. At that time, there wasn't a lot of us that were pulling remote. We did on Steadicams and cranes, some of the cranes if you didn't have a Chapman crane. And it was pretty cool. It was really, really cool. And then we came back, and then, I hit the ball, and Gunnar ran it home, came over to home plate. That's basically exactly what happened. And he showed him all the other devices. I will say that device that I had at that time was the C Motion that I did the demonstration with. And it was pretty, we just got to make sure now with all this COVID stuff that we're all supposedly pulling remote, that everybody sticks up for that technician rate. Because before that, if you use the Panavision camera, then you receive the technician rate. That was part of the contract. In fact, it's still there, but that's, of course, a film camera or anamorphic. That's it.
Yeah, I think the last thing I want to say about that real quick is I remember the attorney, and it's always stuck with me, for the other team saying, in your experience, would it be easier to do focus, iris, and zoom at the same time for a shot? And I thought about it for a second. I said, well, that's a pretty hard thing to do. I would say it would have been impossible to do that shot if with one person, if it was without a remote. Doesn't make it easy just because you can do it. And they thought they got us so good. And then I just saw our attorney just go like, David Adelstein. That's why I got doctor tickets for a long time.
Well, while we're talking about stuff like that, why don't you start off us, Gunnar, with some of your tips, man? Like, what are some of the tips or tricks that you've learned over the years or come up with over the years that you use for something that's like a technically hard shot?
Start with me because Baird has so much more experience about that.
Well, we've got you on screen, so we'll start you off, and then Baird can kick you off. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I came up as a first in kind of the strange transition from the old school to the new school. And what I see a lot of people now are just relying on pulling focus on a monitor, but you miss so much. Like if you're in the other room, if you're far away, you're not seeing what is really happening. Like most people, they start moving before they start walking, they start moving their hip. You look for the hip to move. You want to look at eyes on close-ups, like you see little ticks that people do, and you just lose so much if you're not close to the action. So even if I'm remote, even if I have my monitor, I always keep my monitor low so I can look above it, and then I just kind of graze between the both from the real set to the virtual set, and then you just kind of understand timing from that. Or else you'll always be behind.
That's very true. It's one of those things where I'm constantly like, I have my glasses down here, I'm looking over there. But that's a good thing. I mean, you worked on a show called Transparent, which won a lot of awards. But it was very different. It was shot in a very different manner from everything else that was being shot out there. What was it about that show that you found to be different or challenging, and what did that show teach you?
Well, luckily in my career, I had some very talented, very classically trained assistants mentoring me throughout the years. And when that show came out, you get very hard-headed approach. Like you got to do this, you got to get your marks, this is what's going to be from A to B. And that's almost like classical music, right? It's very structured. When I got on that show was a rude awakening, and it was kind of like Ornette Coleman free jazz, because there was no rehearsals. No one was in the same spot at a time. We had this 35 millimeter Leica R from Panavision that was close focus, went down to a foot, and we had these little Canon cameras that it was the DP would just go like you never knew it was going to happen, and you just have to follow it. And that was the moment that I really transitioned. I know, funny on that show, of my approach. And sometimes you just got to let go and feel it, because there's moments on that show that I was able to do that I had no idea how I did them. It just all falls into place, and it's like you have this beautiful moment that everyone starts going in sync, and you don't know how. There's one scene in particular where Jim Frono, the DP, was just in the middle of a party, and it's like everyone's in a circle dancing, and he's spinning around, and then he just goes right into a close-up. And first take, I didn't get it. Instead of like saying anything, he just walked over to me and put his hand on my chest and went back and did it again. And the second time, I nailed it. I don't know. No one was in the right spot. No one was that. And there's no way of getting marks for that. You know, there's a sense of pulling focus, and you almost touch the divine sometimes. You just got to trust your gut.
No, very true, man. Sometimes you got to let it go to let it happen. And that's exactly, it sounds like what you and Jim had going on there. The pretty special relationship between the DP and the focus puller, or the whoever's operating on the
Yeah,
camera.
now I have kind of the same thing with my operator, Baylor Trutz. We just go on from show to show, and I know we were just connected, and there's something beautiful about that.
Yeah. Baird, you want to jump in and give us some of your vast experience? I'll just say Baird has probably forgotten more about focus pulling than I have learned in my last 15 years of pulling focus. Baird's probably forgotten more than I've learned. So Baird, drop some of that knowledge on us, sir.
Okay, I'm gonna start with today and go backwards. So the biggest thing is staying up with technology, right? You have to embrace it. The one thing that I do, if I can, I'm on the set. And just like Gunnar said, I want to see the actors. And usually back in the old days, it would be unfair for an actor to basically get in a fight with me, because I knew every single one of their moves. I knew how they stand up. I know how they just, shift. And that's what you have to learn. So even if you're in the back of the room, and we know how it is now with certain dolly grips and operators, they free float, just like Gunnar was saying. But if they're moving in, just to see the environment, and don't just count on the monitor. The monitor is an aid. It is not the end all, right? Because you just have to know when somebody's sitting there and they go to get up, if they do this first before they move, or they go to the side and get up. I mean, you learn those things, and you just have to be aware of them, So now you take that, let's go backwards. Think of all the things we do with remote now, and think about putting your hand on the knob and trying to do those same things without any visual aid. I mean, that's where all these things that we were just talking about come into play. So as I say, I'm going backwards. If you can jump off a monitor and walk up to that camera because your system has gone down. I mean, I've had that happen. I've just walked up to the lens, pulled the motor off, and just put my hand on it and follow focus. That you need to be able to do that, because then you gain spatial relevance, from our eyes to that individual. Because I'm not thinking about the film playing, I'm thinking about my playing and what I'm doing as far as the focus. So you just gotta, if you can put the remote down and put your hand on that lens and focus, then you have both of it, because something's gonna happen to that controller. The battery's gonna die, something's gonna happen. And you still have to be able to do manual focus. And you really can't gain that by being in another room. And the other thing is, if you're in the other room all the time, then finally you walk in there and you pull the tape measure out to the actor, and it's like, who are you? You have to have a relationship with the actor too, and sound and everybody else that's on the set. So I prefer to be in the vicinity of the action.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I feel like it's become so displaced. You barely know who the actors are. They don't know who you are. And you're absolutely right. I mean, some of my funnest times are when the video just dies for some reason, and I got to run over to the camera and pull the motor and pull off of hand. But I also know that I'm fortunate to get invited to teach at ASC with some of the not AS at AFI for some of their classes. And the one thing I always have them do is I turn all the monitors off, and I'm just like, okay, guys, pull focus, and they're like, how do you do that? I mean, I don't, what do you mean pull focus? I'm like, well, this is how you got to learn what spatial distances are and set up yourself and a little, have a little trick for when you walk in a room, just immediately map out the room and stuff like that. So what is something that you do or find yourself doing? What's your setup like when you first get on set? How do you get a sense of that space so you know at any given point of time where you are and how you can pull focus in that situation?
Well, because, when Steadicam first came out, and it's, here's an interesting trivia question. The first Steadicam shot that was done here in Los Angeles, right? Rick Waite, we were doing Tell Gunnar Joe, and they had Garrett, he couldn't come out here, but they had him send his rig out here, right? And nobody had used it, and basically Universal said, well, if you don't send it here without you, we'll never use it. We're not going to hire. So they send the rig out. So Rick Waite puts it on, and he did the worst Steadicam shot ever in the Senate building, trying to get the thing like this. I'm walking, and I'm trying to balance it. Richard Walden's trying to focus it. And I mean, it was crazy. And we just had a 2C on it. But he was game to do anything. Then, of course, after that, we had professionals that work with us all the time, which was great. But one of the things that I do on a set, I try and get to the side of the actors. If I don't care if I'm on the floor or whatever, because I want to see them do this instead of this, right? So it's easy for me to put down one main mark, and then I'll put 6 inches in front of them, 6 inches behind them. And part of the reason why I can do that is with the C motion, when I calibrate mine, I calibrate it down to 3 inches, right? Of every lens down to 3 inches. So that way I kind of know definitely where I'm at. But I try and get on the side so I can see them do this instead of coming in and out, which has worked for me. I mean, it's, and that way too, I'm out of their eye line, hopefully. Because back in the day, some actors would like, do you got to be there? And it's like, yeah, if you want to be in focus, I have to be here. It's like, because you get an eye contact with them, and you got to learn not to have an eye contact with them when they're looking at the camera. You kind of try and fake it that you're looking off to the side, because it does affect them. It does affect them. Now that's not an issue because none of us are really on the camera. The operator's there. So, but getting on the side, and especially with these no rehearsal things, I can just put a mark down and stay on the side and just watch them go side to side. And that's my motion. My motion is not this, it's this.
Right.
So
that's pretty interesting. That's a good little tip to triangulate yourself off to the side and be able to watch them do a motion that you can keep up with a lot faster rather than reacting to them coming forward. That's pretty cool.
So there's one real quick thing that Baird talked about a little earlier, kind of touched on, but it was one of the best lessons that he taught me is, one, always wear a collared shirt, and it's all about building relationships, because you want the actors, you want people, you want to have a presence on set, and you want to be a professional. And every person in my department I delegate tasks to, and like the entire industry is all about relationships. When you're the loader, you're the best boy of the truck, and you have to make sure that the transpo captain is happy, or else the truck goes wrong. You got to make sure the payroll's happy, or else the whole department implodes. You got to make friends with the caterer, so in case the DP or the A operator, someone wants to go get that, you can go to the side door, call them by their name, get their order out, so they don't have to wait for all the 40 extra that just showed up. Like all these things. So that's that. And once you're the second assistant, then you build a little bit more on your relationships. And when you're the first, like you have to run the department, you have to run the set, and it's all about building relationships. And you build on each step, you build on that foundation. And Baird is the one that taught me that.
Well,
and it all starts with a collared shirt.
And no shorts. But I will say one thing, as a focus puller technician, first assistant, the most important person on that camera crew is your second. You could be just thrown under the bus if you do not have a second that is aware of not only you. I've said on the set that there's no democracy in the camera department. Cameraman first, and then the way that you go down. But the most important person to me is that second. And they know how I do things. So it's organic. You know, we're going to get marks and they go, well, we got to roll. I'm going, no, just give me 10 seconds, right? I go out, they put the marks down. Okay, ready. And then you trust them. You have to trust them because they're the individuals who also are like ordering equipment, knowing what equipment that you need, and they're indispensable. In fact, if you don't have I don't want to say a good one, I say a great one. I've had great second assistants. I mean, incredible second assistants. Probably 70% of them are directors of photography now. Now, this is over a span of, 40 plus years. But those individuals are, you have to have a great second, and you have to give them time and work together because you're together with that person more than you are with your family, period. So you have to have a relationship. The number one relationship on that set is your second assistant, period. I see them more than you see your wife or your husband or your kids. So, and you bounce stuff off of each other too. If they have an issue, it's not just a professional thing, it becomes a personal thing. I may be down. That person knows how to, okay, I'm not gonna mess with them right now, but I'm gonna help them right now. And the same goes for me to them, and that's the operator, the DP or whatever. We're in a unique industry. In fact, as far as the motion picture industry is concerned, I think we have the most unique surroundings of any other department, because we deal with everybody, us in here and then out to everybody. And we represent the look of the film.
It's interesting that I've been fortunate, and I'm sure you can speak to this at some point, because you have experienced it clearly. In my introduction, I mentioned that the racism that you've come across on set. It's interesting to me that most of our sets sort of reflect a little bit of the city that you're in or the area that you're in. I was fortunate. Gunnar pulled me on to Transparent for a week, to help out with stuff. And it was so interesting and so amazing being on a set that had so many different flavors of human beings. It was just, very cool. But tell us a little bit about, what you've seen in your short time with this union. How it's morphed and how it's changed for the better.
Now you're referring to me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the one thing I will say, I've not been to Europe, I haven't been to Australia, but I've been to the Far East and Mexico, Costa Rica, Jamaica, Canada, Japan, Hong Kong. And I would say, unfortunately, that was probably the most proudest that I've felt and was treated as an American, was in those other countries. Now, when I come here in the South, which I've, since 76, I've traveled all over. And even with Rick and with Tak Fujimoto, you know, we've gone to places where after a while, I couldn't go into a certain place with the other crew. We had a situation on Long Riders that they were going to arrest David Carradine because they were staying at a different hotel and we were having a crew party. And when I came there, they wouldn't let me in to the hotel in Rayburn, Georgia. So he went off, you know, and then you had Walter Hill and Rick and everybody, you know, everybody got together. I said, that's fine, that's fine. And then I've had situations, as you said, going into different cities, right? Where after a while, if it's a small city, it's kind of weird that it's like they know who I am and I get some type of movie immunity. I mean, I've been, after a while, we were in Tulsa on Tex and, you know, typical sheriff or whatever that was there. And, you know, it's like, boy, you know, blah, 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 you know, they go, okay, you know, then after a while, hey, what are you doing? Why don't you come over? It's like I got accepted because I was in the movie industry. Here's the interesting thing. We were doing in Electric Mist. It was Marcus was my second. We were down in Liberia, Louisiana. So we had to go out. Henry Turrell was the operator. And we had an XR head on to go through the swamps. So I put on a vest and I get in the boat and I sit down and, you know, they give us headsets because, you know, it's going to be loud. And I'm hearing something. I'm looking at people looking at me and I turn around and I take my headsets off and it's the sheriff and he's going, boy, let me tell you something. He goes, if you fall out of this boat, yes, sir. He goes, I want you to stand up as fast as you can and run back over here and get in this boat. And I'm going, what? He goes, take that life vest off. I'd never been in the swamps. I didn't know it was only, that's why we're in an airboat, right? So we had in the town, the mayor and everybody came together. We had a crawfish thing and they brought it up. And this man apologized in front of everybody, including the mayor and everybody else, because they were used to doing that. Yeah, I was offended, but then I wasn't because I know where I'm at. And we have a saying as a Black person when you go to the South is whatever you do, don't mess with Mr. Gilmore's daughter. And I know that may sound strange to people, but it's the truth. You know, when we do travel, I mean, I'm cautious, you know, I know where I'm at. And then you just have to do your job. But that's, you know, that's one of the things.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think sometimes we bring our morals and ideas to a place where it doesn't fit, and you try and force it on there, and it's a bad idea. You know, you gotta adapt to where you are and work it from there on the inside slowly, rather than just trying to cram your concept of humanity or whatever it is onto something else.
Okay. Can I say one thing? The beauty of all that negativeness is that it has made me never do anything like that. And I give everybody the same, as they say, treat your brother as you would like to be treated yourself. And I do that until it gets to that point where you've caused me to go the other way, but it would be personal. It's not as a group against anybody. I can't do that. It's not in me.
That's pretty awesome, man. I mean, every time I've ever interacted with you, I definitely get a sense that you always approach everybody with the same equality until they prove you wrong. You know, it's like you have no filters at all. You have no preconceived notion. That's really one of the reasons I love, you know, meeting you or hanging out with you. So for anybody that's joining us, we're short. In a little bit, we'll have a little question and answer session. So if you have questions for either Baird or Gunnar, you know, get ready to ask them, and Clemens will sort of just check you up and have that. But let me. And I also want to mention, for those of you who logged in to find out whether I'm actually wearing pants or shorts or doing this in my underwear, we will let you know at the end of this meeting. that has to do with my first blog post, Baird. You'll get it later. Anyways, hey, Gunnar, do you wanna tell us a little bit about how your last project that you worked on was a pretty impressive project with some very interesting people, and with one of your favorite operators, Bella Trutz. You wanna tell us a little bit about that and where you are now and where you see yourself going?
Yeah, sure. I did the first season of The Morning Show, which is one of the new Apple shows. It has Jennifer Aniston, Reese Witherspoon, Steve Carell, Billy Crudup, like Mark Duplass. Everyone is a movie star on that one. That's where all the money goes, right? Most expensive TV show ever made, but my rate didn't change. But that was a really challenging show. We shoot it in 8K on the Panavision DXL 2, and we're doing these complicated oneers, Steadicam oneers, and I'm on like 100 mil doing handoffs, going through this, and Transparent was a smaller show, but it was a beautiful show, and that helped me build the foundation from that. Like every job that you do that you think, oh, I don't know how I can do this shot, and then you do it, and then you just get stronger and better and faster and more efficient, and then it just prepares you for the next job. And if I didn't have all those lessons, either when I did something good or when I did something bad and you had to get your hand slapped, like all that goes into making you a better person and a better focus puller. So I'm doing some shots that I never thought was possible at the beginning of season 1. And then by the time we're coming back to do season 2, I was like, oh, this ain't no thing. Okay, we're just put the 100 on, put the 150 on, fuck it, let's do it, which is now everyone wants to do because of COVID. We got to go a little farther back. But, at the beginning of every show, like day 1 is always the hardest. And you think of like, oh man, am I going to be able to make it through the first week? And then if you get past the first week and you got a team behind you, then you're golden.
Yeah, and it's like both you and Baird. I haven't had the pleasure of working with Baird on set, but I have definitely had that pleasure of working with you. And you've definitely surround yourself with people of your caliber. They're very motivated, very talented individuals who are excellent at what they do. And it's both you and Baird, mentioned that really strongly. It's about building a team that you can trust and having people around you that know you better than you know yourself almost. And you turn around and you want a battery and it's already there in your hand, and you look for a filter and it's already coming, and it's having that sort of team that really makes us shine or look good. And you are one of the people that I know that takes the time to build relationships. I mean, it's really important. But I also know you like to have fun and work on some crazy things like huge concerts with U2 and Tom Petty and Madonna. And what is that like? What's that world like? Because I gotta imagine it's different from Transparent and The Morning Show. And how do you compare it, and what have you learned from one that you've applied to the other, or vice versa?
Well, before we get into that, just real quick, James Germain, my second, couldn't do it without you, because I need everybody on that. And between it's Bela, myself, and James, we just keep all the plates spinning. So I would be remiss without saying that. But as for doing like Beachella and all these concerts, which it's interesting because there's no take 2. You just got to fix it. Like, no, if something doesn't work well, like you have the motor comes off and you can't do that, then you have to run on the barrel because camera 6 is down, run over, you got to fix it. I don't know what's wrong with it. I have like my little Felix bag of tricks in there, and I go around. If something goes, I just hop from camera to camera and have to fix it as fast as possible. So it keeps you thinking on your feet, and it's a little looser, but there's a lot higher stress. But here's a fun fact. If you watch Beyonce's Homecoming about Beachella, you'll see me in it like 6 times. Always like, she's in the light, always big. You'll see me like in the shadows over here, which is pretty fun.
Are you making good residual money off of that? Every time they play that, you get residuals for being in the background?
No, talk to Netflix for me, please.
All right, guys, if you have a question for either of our fantastic conversationalists here, please raise your digital hand. Don't raise your hand because there's too many people to fit on the screen. Raise your digital hand, and you can do that by just
Reactions.
going down to the bottom of your screen if you're on a laptop and just hitting reactions, and you can either do a clap or a thumbs up. Just do something so we know that you would like to ask a question. So in the meantime, while we get that, Clemens, you'll monitor that, right?
Yeah, I mean, we got a first question from Andy Sydney. Hey, Andy. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for doing this. There's wonderful stories. My question is to both Gunnar and Baird. As we used to work on the wheel, on the camera, and you have a little relationship with your operator and also the dolly grip, sometimes I like to point things out to the operator. Do you have any advice, since we work remotely now on our separate monitors, how to communicate with the operator when during the middle of a take?
Hey guys, before you guys answer, just if you can introduce yourself, where you are and what your position on set is, so we know where you are, and then I'll let you guys answer that question.
Andy Sydney from San Fernando Valley, Los Angeles, California. I'm a first assistant, and I've been a first assistant for over 30 years now.
All right. Well, I know during a take, I'm sure Baird will go into a little bit more. It's like just having the relationship with the same operator over and over, like their moods, and it's harder when you're not right next to them, because like you used to be able to whisper, booms in the shot or whatever, and of course there's nothing that can replicate that. Like just the distance is bad, so I just try to go like in between, or try to get their attention, try to be close enough where you can do that. Normally you don't have to give too many notes, but you try to gently talk to them at the end of the take and just say we should do another one, and be willing to take the blame and say I need another one, not just fall on the sword sometimes.
What's up, Andy? So I know from back in the day when you would finish a take, maybe 1, 2, whatever it was, they would ask the operator and the assistant, they asked the operator, how was that for you? And usually the operator, they could tell if it was in the frame or not. But then they would ask the focus puller, the technician, hey, how was that for you? And at that time, we really had to, know and feel that we were in focus, right? Because you would go through that sleepless night waiting for the lab report the next morning. So actually you learned that you couldn't lie. So you would have to have that relationship with that operator. Now, if we have the contacts on, it's usually the director of photography or somebody saying, hey, I think you buzz them right there or something like that. And we know that sometimes our operators get freestyling, start going all over the place, and I'll have that conversation with them after that take, or I won't mention the famous assistant's name, and wasn't me, would throw it out of focus. I mean, just purposely just throw it out of focus, right? And then that would stop everything, and then that person would go over and have a conversation with the operator. Operator would be very upset with them, but it's like, okay, we're a team, and that team has to depend on each other. So now, because we're on the set, we can't really say anything, I mean, we'll have a mic on, we're all wired up, they're talking about the transmitters and everything, but with the contacts, the radio on, I mean, look how much stuff we have on during a shot to just communicate now, then you have a remote. Then I know probably all of you remember your parents saying, don't sit in front of that TV that damn close. It's gonna ruin your eyes, right? Look at us now. And what we're in front of is way more powerful than the TV sets we had in the past. And we're there for 12, 14 hours in front of these devices, with these devices. You know, we have our RF situations that we have within the union, you know, especially for the operator on the camera, because it's right next to his head. I don't know how the live guys do it with that, you know, transmitter on the camera. At least at some of the sporting events, there's somebody carrying it. But I know I drifted off into a union thing as far as being safety. But, you know, think about all the electronics that we have on us to do our jobs for 14, 15 hours a day, you know, and trying to have that communication to get that first take that they won't give us a rehearsal on.
That brings me to a question, actually. Talking about union, because here in Europe, only very few countries have a union, and you see in a few countries that they are trying to build one, a new one. So I have two questions for you, Baird. The first one is, what advice could you give someone who is trying to build a new union in his country? And the other one would be, what I'm interested is, what do you think were the three biggest success stories the last maybe 5 to 10 years of the union?
Well, I think I know a little bit about England. They used to have a strong gathering of individuals, right? I don't know if you want to call it a union. I know in Montreal, it was Clinica, I can't remember. But what's interesting is that the individuals in Montreal, I brought their information back to the IA, and because Vancouver is IA, Toronto is IA, and now Montreal is IA, from what I understand. And they see the benefit of, you know, of a union. The difference is in Montreal, the crew had more say than any union. They had the Formula One race there, and the crew voted not to come to work. They're going, no, we're going to the race, because we had a shift schedule from Tuesday, you know, Tuesday to Saturday or Sunday, and the race was on that day. And they had the executive from Paramount come up there and say, okay, if you do this, blah, blah, blah. And they were going like, okay, if we don't come to work, who are you going to get to come to work? And we literally did not shoot so they could go to that Formula One race. So that was a benefit of not being union. But it's just individuals have to, I guess the first thing is think about your safety. That's the one way to get other individuals within the industry. Because I see a lot of things they do in Europe. I mean, a lot of those car chases and stuff, I'm going like, man, I'm glad I'm not there. You know, because some of that stuff is crazy. And then just the respect. I know Paris is kind of strong in regards to the way that they shoot. I'm not sure about some of the other places. I mean, I know about the Far East. I know about Thailand. I know about Japan and Hong Kong. Mexico is, I guess they have a union. Japan, I'm not sure. They just have a collective of individuals. And same thing in Thailand. You know, but it's so infrequent that they do, I guess, big American movies. Well, it used to be, not anymore. You know, that's where everybody goes now. But I don't know if I answered your question, but I attempted to.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So next one is from Matthew. Hi, Matthew.
Hello, my name is Matthew Borick. I'm a Los Angeles-based camera assistant, fellow union member. Thank you, Baird and Gunnar, for doing this, as well as Clemens and Rosemarin and Focus Puller at work. Stoked to be here. My question is about gear purchasing. When do you guys feel is a good time to begin to purchase gear, especially in the digital era? It feels like the snake that eats its own tail, right? By the time you get something and learn it the inside and out of it, there's a new thing or it's updated. And so, what do you recommend maybe buying first, and at what stage of your career would you recommend to begin buying?
Good time to plug C Motion, guys. Someone plug C Motion.
Whatever you need to do to get the job done. It's all about purchasing the tools. And the first thing I ever got was a Cinetape, because I was working on these jobs that sometimes that was the first thing you couldn't, they wouldn't pay for. They're like, oh, you don't need that. Cinetape. I was like, well, I need that. So I just bought the Cinetape, so I was able to have it on set with me all the time, and it was a little job security. And then I made some money off of that, and then I doubled down and then bought a monitor, and just buy the tools that help you do your job, and you can bring them on with you if they can afford them or not, and you just kind of build from there.
Well, I would say with the 80% discounts that these rental companies are giving, charging on all the equipment, and I've done this. My discount was 80 something percent. And I just told them, I said, okay, give me a Preston. Now I'm using C-Motion. They said, well, you're using your C-Motion. I said, yeah, but I'm not going to rent it to you for that. They go, well, why do you need a Preston? I said, because take it out of your inventory and see if you can call somebody and sub-rent this for 80% off, right? And I said, I didn't charge for my C-Motion, but I took it out of their inventory and just put it in the truck. So when the C camera came, I went, here, you got it. But you have to be willing to do that, and I would say probably the most important equipment now that you would have yourself would be a monitor. Find the monitor, have the settings that you need to have on there so you can keep it, right? And then I would say the second thing would be some type of sidekick or something like that, so you can get an image to it and be mobile, and a nice small reduced stand. Now that's not the big $20,000 Preston or $10,000 whatever, but that's something that you could have for a few years and still use it. It doesn't just go right away. Because if you have a focus assist on some of these monitors from 3 or 4 years ago, you can still use it. And by now, it's been paid for 3 or 4 times, no matter what the discount is. But that would be one personal thing I would get, is a monitor.
I agree. And just to reiterate, buy the tools that you need to do your job, because don't buy them as investments to get rich, because with these discounts, you're not going to get rich buying gear. It's not 2003 anymore, or 1999 when everyone was buying batteries.
Thank you both. That's a great answer.
All right. Thank you. We got a question from Rose.
Yes, I'm Rose. My first AC from Holland. And I have a question. First one is for Gunnar. I've seen the morning show, loved it, but there are quite a lot of Steadicam moves in it. And the thing that I find difficult is the Steadicam operator always being a little bit off on the marks. How do you deal with that? Because in a corridor, there's not always a space to walk. And yeah, so if any tips for that?
Well, the reason why the operating and the focus is so good on that is that Bela is a goddamn surgeon. And he is.
Mislim da nemamo ni vremena, 20 do.
Oh, funny. Let's mute him and then we'll try it again. But, well, hello. Anyways, that's kind of interesting development. But Bela is a surgeon, and just having an operator that understands consistency in motion is key. And that's why half the shots that we are able to do is because of him. Did we get infiltrated by bots here?
No,
Let's see.
I'm still good.
Okay. Okay, good. I just had like this little Russian guy show up on my screen, which is interesting. Never mind. That was very distracting. But hopefully that answered your. My Zoom was like a whole different person for a second.
No, that answered my question. But that's when you're just with one operator. So my question is also for Baird. How do you deal with that when you don't have a Steadicam operator or an operator who hits his own mark?
Well, I'll just say this, Gunnar, you stole Bella from me because you know he was supposed to do Coming to America 2, and then you guys went and did the Adam Sandler movie. So we'll talk about that at another time.
Well, you already had an assistant for him. So.
But you know, for me, it goes back to doing that my side thing if I can. I mean, I'm from the time when we had the sights controllers, right? And there was no pressing, you know, you had the 3 knobs. And what's crazy, we were expected and could do focus, iris, and zoom off of this box, right? So I've gotten used to it, and you kind of know what their abilities are. You kind of know usually if they're going to start to do this, they do this. If they do this, they will never go back, right? So if they come up to a mark and they got to correct, they'll always go in. It seems like to me, that's how they stabilize, is going in. So you'll learn that rather quickly. Now I've worked with some incredible Steadicam operators. I mean, absolutely the best ever. You know, Scotty Sakamoto. Jack Green was one of the best Steadicam operators there was before he became a director of photography. Now, I'm not counting Rick Waite in the beginning, so never mind that. But that goes back to that relationship. And I guess the difference is now is before a Steadicam person would bring, don't let me forget Jimmy Murrell, Steve St. John, I mean, they would usually be the B camera operator / Steadicam. So they would usually bring in their assistant with them. Now, recently, as we know, most of the A cameras are multi-purpose. They're A camera / Steadicam. And they may not have a choice of who their assistant is because the DP has worked with an individual for a good length of time. So then you have to just learn how to deal with them. Candide Franklin, who was a Steadicam person that I worked with for several shows, was absolutely incredible. He was from Canada. You know, I mean, just a lovely person and an incredible endurance and rock solid. But you will know. I mean, Liz Ziegler, you know, I mean, when she first came on the scene, you know, people were going, oh, you know, a woman doing that. Liz was cool. She was down, you know, and she could do it. And you just got to learn quickly what their moves are. So I don't know. It's not just looking at their feet. In fact, you don't. You know, if you look at the camera, because you'll know if their eyes are like here, and if something goes wrong and the camera's here, or it's here, there's an adjustment that they've made. Just like I did with my headset coming apart. So that's it.
All right.
Thank you.
That's pretty cool. That hopefully that answered some of it. So it looks like we don't have any more questions. So we're gonna start bringing this thing around to an end. Gunnar, I'm gonna start with you. Is there a question I haven't asked you that you would like to ask yourself and reply and tell us something?
Amber, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
We just got a question from
Oh,
Sarah.
great.
Sorry, so
Good. Yeah. Go ahead, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah Galley, Los Angeles camera assistant. Thank you guys for having us, hosting us. Thank you, Baird and Gunnar, for sharing your words of wisdom. I have a question. I don't know if this is kind of out of line for the form that we're in. Moving away from the technical side for a minute and kind of going to the business side, when you're taking on a show as the A camera, when and is there a place for you to kind of negotiate not only your rate, or maybe your and your second's rate, and furthermore, shoot, I just blanked on the other part. Yeah, I guess going off rate. Oh, and then what are some of the talking points that you kind of carry on from show to show to show, arguing that this is the rate that I deserve, kind of going off, I guess, the basic agreement. Yeah.
All right. You want to do that one, Bear, or do you want me to do it?
You go
We'll
first.
sure both do. Okay. Well, I normally, some shows they just locked in, like, this is what you get no matter what, right? And as a camera technician, and I know that that's where I'm going to start at, typically, just from what our union contract is. And so the first thing I always try to do is make sure that my second gets paid as a first, because that, I'm getting a pretty good rate. Plus I have the rentals. So I always try to bring him up, or her, to that position for all the extra work of being on the A camera. If there's a little bit more wiggle room, like on a feature, then you can kind of set yourself up, and you said, you want $10 over scale is kind of what the end goal, and you can start with that, and then they can kind of whittle down that or give you more of a box rental. But I always start first with trying to bring the second up.
Well, go for it. I'm sorry. That's probably one of the, I don't want to say fun things that I do at the beginning of the show, but it's going to come up. So with all the experience that I've had, two things that happen. One, I'm either having too much experience in regards to, my age or whatever with the production. But I do just like Gunnar said. I usually negotiate, I definitely negotiate for all of the technicians and the assistants and the loaders. Usually you don't negotiate for the digital imaging technician. I've even had situations where an operator would come to me and I would assist them with production. On this last big movie I did, I had a situation like that. And it's just a reality, it's just reality. It's easy to a certain extent to say technician rate, and that's even for the other cameras, the B, C, D, E camera, if they're all that, and it's technician. Right now, you are going to get your box rental, so sometimes they have to fudge that because they're stuck in a number, and they have the money. That's the thing. They have the money, because whatever they say from the camera department, when they get that 80% discount for the camera package, that money goes into another department. It's not that it's not fair. So in knowing that, with all the experience I have, I can say debate it. I don't want to say argue. It's not an argument with them. It's a debate to show the experience that you have. The bigger thing is the prep time, because a lot of the individuals, they want you to prep in 2 days, and it's like, I can't do that, especially if it's on a feature. I'm going, like, the first day I get there, they're not going to have anything. That second day I'm there, I'm just dealing with the lenses. That's the most important thing on this camera package. And, back in the film days, you would shoot a film lens test. Now you do your chart, everything like that. So explain the process to them, and then come back to, I'm not sure who you worked with before, but this is who you're working with now. They may not have heard those different things in the negotiations from the last person, right? The last person didn't tell them, well, hey, you know, I have to do a lens test. I have to do a frame and focus chart. And it's interesting that there's a lot of production individuals that do not know that, but you just got to be strong. The technician rate should not be an issue. It shouldn't be an issue at all because we're all remote now. And remember that. Call Gunnar if they mess with you.
Thank you guys so much.
All right, any more questions, Clemens, or are we good?
I think we're good.
Okay. Hey, so Gunnar, I'll start with you, man. Is there something I didn't ask you that you would like to talk about, or what words of wisdom would you like to leave us with?
Well, first thing, I was really interested, of course, when I answered Rose's question. I had this random guy just pop up on my Zoom and was looking at me, and it was really funny. That was a little distracting. So just put that on the record because I know this is being recorded. But what I like to finish off is with one of our good friends was Richard Mosher. And Richard Mosher was a brilliant camera technician and such a kind gentleman that really was patient enough to teach me how to thread a Panaflex when I was 19 and listened to all my questions. And like when I was excited, I told him I was moving to LA and we used to have lunch at Panavision, and I'd listen to his stories and handing down information, which was such a difference from Denver, which was so closed off and no one would tell you anything. And he was so open because he wasn't concerned with me taking Pearl Harbor or any of his jobs like that. And I just wanted to give a moment to remember him.
Awesome, thank you. Baird, same deal for you, man. Is there something I haven't asked you that you would like to talk about, or something I forgot to ask you? Because you've had such a long and fabled career that we could do a 7-day Zoom and still not cover the first day.
No. Nice try. One thing I will say, this is my brag moment, right? Because you didn't ask what were my favorite films. You asked what my hardest was. But some of the directors of photography that I'm favored with was Rick Waite and Tak Fujimoto, who I worked with for almost 11 years also. And then with Bruce Surtees and Alan Davio, Haskell Wexler, Conrad Hall, Jordan Cronenworth, and even to this day of individuals like Jody Williams. It's interesting. We just finished doing Coming to America. That was one of his first huge movies. And I think that he has been around long enough to have worked with those directors of photography that he took that knowledge and made it easy. So all of us, this is an industry where the sky's the limit. It really is. As long as you're dedicated, and you have to be dedicated, you're going to look at what we're going through right now. This industry has never gone through this. We've had strikes, not us, but writer strike, actor strike. And this community that we have, just like here, which we've never had before, and I hope we don't lose this, even if we're working all the time from now on, is that we have a time that we put aside to come back to all of us and have 20 screens so people could say, hey, I'm doing good, I'm making it, all right, we got through that, and let's continue to go, because we are a community, of individuals who I may see Gunnar right now, and we know how this industry is, like Andy, and he could tell you, you could be with somebody and not see them for 15, 20 years, not even come across them again, right? Because you're here and we're all over the place, but you still remember that friendship that you have. And the one thing about this industry, it is built on a certain special friendship that, Richard Mosher, Ricky mentioned, You know, we talk about so many individuals who have been here before us, who have guided us and brought us to the future, you know. And there's another little one right there. He's going to bring us to the future also. Hey.
Yep. And this is what's important, guys. Don't forget, family is important.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we know that. I got 2 sons in this business. Tried to talk them out of it. You know, Baird Jr. and Justin. But hey, that's their mom. Oops, sorry.
Man, this has been really cool, man. Thank you guys for giving us an hour and a half of your beautiful Friday afternoon. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we will definitely be back with another Zooms with Legends soon. If you guys somehow got this link without signing up for the website focuspulleratwork.com, please go and register on that website. And we've got some fun stuff on the blogs and the forums, lots of great info on there. And so, yeah, thank you everyone for coming, and we'll see you soon. And the answer to the first burning question is they're over here. So you guys who know, you know what's going on, you know what's going on. If not, go read the blogs, man. All right, get out of here. Have a wonderful Friday afternoon, y'all, or evening, or whatever it is. Thank you for coming. Namaste.